Well, good morning all. The lovely warm weekend ahead of us here at the off-grid cabin. In fact, it's going to be a scorcher coming up, so we're going to have a look at that in a second. But in this video, I thought I would look at the off-grid services I've got here on the off-grid cabin. So I've got a lot more subscribers now that haven't seen how everything's set up, and I did get a lot of questions from people about how I have things set up. So I thought I'd recap and let's have a look at all the services, because I've got some chores to get done this morning, and one of them is to get these water tanks topped up and do some water transfers. So we'll look at that. We'll look at the off-grid power, how all that works. But first, have a look at the temperatures we've got coming up in the next couple of days. So we'll come up to the laptop here, and I've got displayed the temperatures for the next 4 days. So today is going to be 41 degrees. Tomorrow is going to be 42 degrees. But have a look at Monday. That's right, it's going to be 46 degrees on Monday. That is hot. So that is 115 degrees Fahrenheit for my interstate viewers. So it's going to be a hot day on Monday. Then we're going to cool down to a lovely 37 degrees Celsius. So this weekend is going to be a hot weekend. So time we get in and get some of these chores done before the temperature warms up. The worst part's going to be for Monday is I've got to do a bit of work for Kawasaki. We've got a broken down mule I've got to go out and fix. So I'm going to be out in the paddock on 46 degrees getting the mule sorted out. Oh, that's going to suck, but that's life. Right, so let's look at how much water we've got down at the cabin, at the tank. So my cabin tank, which is the water that feeds into the cabin here, let's have a look and see where we're at with that. Hopefully we can get a bit of a view inside here. Yeah, you can see that's nearly empty, so we need to do some water transferring and fill this one back up again. So we're going to be pumping that water from this tank here, which is linked into the one up there. So these two are linked together. So how much water have we got in these? So let's do a bit of a knock test. About there. So that's where it is. So we're going to have a look. Well, we're low on water here, so we need to transfer some water into these, and that's got to come from that big tank up there. So first thing we'll do, let's get this filled up first. Oh, let's go turn some water on, do some transferring. There we go. Open that up. Pump is running, and water is going there. There we go. Water's going into there, keeping out of the sun. Righto. So while that's filling, let's have a look to see how the cabin gets its water. So this is the tank that feeds into the cabin, and that water goes from these pipes here up into this 12-volt water pump, and from the 12-volt water pump there, it's got a little screen filter, but generally that's pretty good. I don't usually get much gunk coming through. That comes through and it comes up into here and then in through this big blue filter here, and then down into the plumbing that goes in to the cabin. I can get water up the top here as well, and so on. So these two taps here, that gives me the opportunity to shut off the 12-volt pump, so we can get some exposure. There we go. Shut off the 12-volt pump and then open this one up, and that brings the water in from the mains pump, or the 230-volt pump, which is that pump there. And the reason I do that is, oh, that sun is so bright that it's smashing me in the face. There we go. Hang on a sec. Just get out of the sun. The reason why I do that is when I do laundry, I want to pump the water into the washing machines. That little 12-volt pump just takes too long to fill the washing machine up. So when I do laundry, I switch over to the bigger tank. So you're going to ask me, why do I even bother running that little tank? Well, here's the thing. So when we have limited water, we're conscious of it, and we tend to conserve it a lot more. It's kind of a psychological thing. But when you live and you're connected to grid water and it's endless, you don't really sort of think about how much water you use. You just turn the tap on and use what you want. So when you know you've got to be coming out here and filling up tanks all the time, It's a chore that you've got to do. So you tend to be more conservative with water, and it does work. So I'm very conservative with water. I don't use very much at all. So let's get that filled up, and then we're going to do some more transferring from the bigger part of the bigger tank. That's got it. Oh, we're nearly full. We're nearly full. Oh, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't overflow. So let's go turn that off. So while I'm turning this off, another thing that I do in the way of water is, well, I've got some pot plants over there, so I need to water those. So what I've set up is just sort of like a mini dripper system type of a self-watering system. So that one is fed from this tap here. So I've got this over it to protect it from the sun. So this is just one of these little tap timers. And these things, these are the Pope ones, these actually work a treat. So let's turn this on and I'll show you it working. And that, come on, there we go. Right, so pumping the water, so that gets fed from that pump, which is those tanks, and that comes over here to all my little waterers here. You can see that one there. That one there is watering that one plant there. And my blackberries have got a watering system in there like that, which is covered. There we go. I might have trouble with the blackberries in that extreme heat, because last year I got a lot of burning leaves, but there's really not much I can do about that. In there, and then over here, oh look, blueberries, yum. All right, look at that. These are going to be beautiful. So that's that one. You can see that water going down in there like that, and that one, and they do all the same. So that's how I water my little pots, and as a result of that, I get to eat these absolutely beautiful self-grown blueberries. Got to get them before the birds do. Right, let's go. We've got to transfer some water now from the holding tank up there, so let's get that all sorted. We'll just put the lid on this first, and then we've got to set up the pump to change some taps around on the pump to transfer that holding water. By the way, this is a 550 litre tank, for those that are wondering, and this tank here is a 4,500 litre tank, and that is the same tank, 4,500. So these two linked together is 9,000 litres. Right, so what I need to do is we'll take the cover off this, because I've got to change some valves and some taps around so we can backfeed some water into the tanks from the holding tank. Alright, so I just took the cover off there. So this is the pump that pumps the water around to all the taps around the property, except for into the cabin, unless I do my little valve trick over there. It pumps it to the garden as well. So they come out of this tank here. Now, when I want to pump water up to the holding tank, this pump pumps that to the holding tank up there. But then when I want to backfeed it, well, I need to isolate this pump. So what we're going to do is we're going to shut that off, and then we're going to open up this bypass line. So what's going to happen now is that water, I can bypass that backwards down into this tank here. And of course, as I fill that up, it's going to fill that up over there. So let's get that sorted. So you've got to be your own water company here and do all your water maintenance and know what taps to turn on at what time, or it can get a bit messy. And yeah, I have screwed things up and pumped water in the wrong spot and made a flood. Okay, so this tank here, 25,000 litre tank, that is full. So what happens with this one, when it rains during the winter time, the cabin fills up. If we can do it without losing exposure for the sun, the cabin fills up those 4,500 litre tanks down there. So that's where the water gets filled up. And then I pump that up to this tank here for storage. So this is my holding tank. So now those tanks are getting down. I want to pump that water back down to there. Now the height of this tank and the ground is actually about 2/3 of the way up those tanks down there. You wouldn't think that. It kind of doesn't look that. So anyway, without boring you any further, and you're going to click off to more videos, what we're going to do is we're going to open up some taps. So this here is for a hookup for fire brigade if we need it for fire. Going to open up that. we're going to open up that. You can hear it gurgling. Now that is gravity feeding down to those tanks down there, and that is going to top them up. Righto. Can we see down in there? Yeah, you can kind of see that is getting a bit down. Hello. Okay, so that's gravity feeding that back into these. So I'm not going to fill, oops, might fall over. I'm not going to fill these tanks, get out of that sun. I'm not going to fill those tanks up. I don't want to fill them up because if we do get some summer storms, I need some room to be able to put that water I collect from the roof. So I'm going to bring those tanks to about half, and then that'll do, and that'll get me through a while. So we're in the end of December, so I've lasted right through to the end of December before I needed to use some water out of my storage tank. So that's going pretty good, but we can't fill them to the top because then if we get rain, we're going to overflow them. So if you can follow me, that's going to take some time. I'm going to make myself a coffee, come back out a little bit later on, get that sorted, and we're going to have a look at the off-grid power and what powers this cabin for electricity. So while we've still got the water tanks still filling up, we'll have a look at the off-grid power for the cabin, the electricity for the subscribers that are new to the channel and haven't seen this. So on the roof of the cabin, we've got 3.2 kilowatts of solar. Now that goes down into my power shed. So let's go and have a look at that. So there's my power shed. Now I've got the door open for the moment because the hot weather, we try and keep the heat out. I do need to get some air conditioning sorted out in that. So the power comes from the panels into the power shed. So we'll have a look in here and we'll see where it goes from there. So the panels, or the power, comes through from the panels through to these disconnect switches. So there's two strings of panels. One string goes to this solar controller, so it's the Victron solar controller, and then the second string goes to this Victron solar controller as well. So we're running, each string has its own separate controller. And then from there, the power then goes down through one of these fuse boards here. Now, these fuses, if I can, they are super, super heavy. See if I can get one. That's the fuses they are here. So there's these big fuses. Now, these are filled full of sand. So if we do get a failure, the sand inside that extinguishes any arc, so we don't get any arcing with inside the fuse. So these are the fuses that I'm using in those fuse boxes there. Now we can also, with these, pull them down and they actually disconnect. So they're actually a fuse and a disconnect breaker as well. So from there, it goes down into these lithium iron phosphate batteries. So they are a 100 amp hour 48 volt battery each. So we've got total 300 amp hours and a 48 volt system. So that's just a bit over 15 kilowatts. I think it's something like about 15 and a half kilowatts. More than enough for what I need. And then that is measured through the shunt there. So everything goes through the shunt so I can monitor what the power's doing. And then the power will come up through another breaker again. We've got a disconnect breaker and fusing. And then that'll go up into the inverter here, which is a 5 kVA inverter. Now I want to make a little point here. This is a 5,000 VA. So we'll look here, it says 5,000 VA, but it's not 5,000 watts. There's a difference between VA and watts, and it's going to depend on your power factor as well. 5 kVA inverter, and it's putting in 4 kilowatts, which is enough for what I want to do. And then from there, it goes over to the distribution board here. So we've got some breakers going down to our output outside the shed, which you'll see. And this is just a couple of breakers for the power points. In fact, they're RCBOs for the power points here. So this is our main breaker here. Now that comes around to a wasp nest right there. Look at that. I need to clean that off. Wasps, they like building nests everywhere. So this is a 32 amp single phase output. Now in Australia, we're running 230 volts. So 32 amps at 230 volts is equivalent to, in the US, 64 amps at 110 volt. But we're running 230 volt. I know US runs 240 as well. We won't get into that. So from there, we come out and our 32 amp output, and then that runs like that up into here, and this is the 32 amp input into the cabin. So the cabin is not hardwired to my power shed. My power shed is actually a standalone generator. That's how I've got it set up. So it's a complete movable standalone generator. I can put it anywhere, plug any panels into it, but I've just used it here on the cabin. Eventually I'm going to build something bigger and get everything hardwired, but that will be down the track. So this input here, this is generator input. So that comes from my generator. So around the back part of the cabin there, I have a generator. So let's go have a look at that. So I've been doing off-grid power for over 20 years, in fact about 25 years, and I've been living off-grid on houses for, well, since I think about 2007, when I put off-grid power on my old house that I had and went completely off-grid there. And prior to that I lived in motorhomes while I was off-grid in there. So I've been doing it for quite a while, and back then we had lead batteries, and when you were running flooded lead acid batteries or AGMs, well, you needed generators because you can't pull a lot of power out of them. Since I've been going over to lithium, I really haven't needed to use the generator much, but we still have it just in case. So this generator here, this is my backup generator here. So this is the SB. Someone asked me what generator this was. So this is the SB Tools inverter generator. There is the specs if you want to pause onto that. That gives you the specs of it. The new model generator they've got now is a 4.5 kVA. Remember, kVA and kilowatts is different. So this is I think it's a 3.3 kVA, something like that. The specs are on the side, you'll be able to read it. Electric start, so I don't have to piss around with pulling cords. So let me just start it up for you. If I can get this to turn here. I'll start it up because I know some people like to hear this. Is that battery going to be flat or is it going to work? Come on, there you go. Righto. That is running. We'll turn on the power here. I know my arm's in the way, but it's kind of hard holding the phone. There we go. So now the generator goes around in, and it's going to go into that inverter. Let's go have a look. Okay, back up into the power shed. So this lead here, and this is 2.5 mil line. I've made this line up. It's 2.5 mil. Anyone in Australia should know what I'm talking about. So it's rated to around about 25 amps, I think, going into a 15 amp input, and then that comes around into the inverter, and you can see the inverter because it's got a transfer switch in it and it has a charger as well. So the inverter is automatically transferred over to mains. It's actually not mains, it's a generator, and now that it is charging from the generator, you can see it's on bulk charge. So not only are we charging now from the generator, we're also charging from solar. So these batteries are going to be charged up really quick, but we don't need to keep running that. I'm going to turn that off in a second. Just doing this for your entertainment viewing. We've also got the Servo GX here, which is the Victron remote monitoring, so I can remotely monitor my system. You can also monitor it too. I'll leave the link below. Just click on the link there. Wait for it to load up and you'll be able to see my system as well, because I do allow that to be shown on the public VRM portal. So that is how the off-grid power system works here. Well, one of them. Right, so let's go into the cabin and have a look to see where it goes from there with that power. There we go. We've got some nice exposure. Righto, so I said it was one system. So yeah, that goes and supplies the power, the main power points into the cabin. So we look here, this is our distribution board here, and that is where the power comes in from that 32 amp input. So we've got a main breaker, and then all these here are different circuits around the cabin. That is the hot water. We're going to look at that one in a second. Timer, because I have the hot water turning on at 12 o'clock. Midday is when the sun's at its peak. Now, all these are all individual safety switches as well as well as overloads. So they're called an RCBO. So we've got RCBOs in every one of the breakers now, which is kind of getting more common now. So that supplies power to all of the power points in the cabin. But I do have, well, my little 12-volt system, which you've seen before, and I like playing around with solar. So I've got my little 12-volt system. So I've got some panels outside that come in through to the DC. Let me turn on some light. Hang on a second. Okay, that's kind of a bit better lighting. So the power from the panels outside, so my little 12-volt panels outside, come into this power box. I've done reviews on these. You've seen this on my channel before. So it comes in through the DC to DC charger and charges up the battery that's in here, which is 120 amp hour lithium iron phosphate. Now, I use all of my USB charging, so all of my tablets and phones and everything gets charged up through here. And then the output goes to, well, a couple of places. So one of them output here goes to the 12-volt pump that pumps water into the cabin. There's also another 12-volt pump that pumps the water into the toilet through the recycled water. And then we've got another line that goes all the way around there, along there, and it goes to my King's freezer, the dual zone here that I'm running some tests on, and keeps that running nicely. And what voltage have we got coming out? I think this reads voltage. Does it read voltage? Yeah, it does, but I've got to kind of work out how to do it. But you kind of get the idea. So that is my 12-volt system. Now the 12-volt system also runs my diesel heater. Now we're in the middle of summertime at the moment, so that is turned off, but that runs my diesel heater. And this is where the diesel heater is located. I have done a video on this diesel heater on my channel, so if you're wanting to see this working, go and have a look at that video, because, well, I've got it put to bed for summertime. So I've got this shade cloth put over the top of it, and that is going to protect it for the sun until I build a cover over that. So that is the diesel heater, which the 12-volt system runs. Now, yeah, I know there's someone going to say this. The diesel heater exhaust comes out to these plants here. Well, don't worry about that, because wintertime, these plants don't sit here. They sit over that side, because the shade in the afternoon comes to here. I just move them here so they can get a bit of afternoon shade because of our extreme heat. So that is the diesel heater. And the 12-volt system runs this pump here, which is the pump for the cabin, which we saw at the start of the video. And underneath here, it has the 12-volt pump. That one there, right there, that runs the recycled water into the toilet. So the 12-volt system also runs that. Now, this is my hot water. So my hot water for my bathroom is through here. This is a 50-litre electric hot water service that runs just from a power point there. So it's got a 2.4 kilowatt element in it, and that gets fed from the timer you saw in my distribution block. So that timer is linked up to that power point. So at 12 o'clock I set that to come on, and that heats up my water. Now 12 o'clock's when the sun's out at its most fullest, kind of. Heats up my water, and then once that's hot, thermostat turns off, timer turns off a couple of hours later and stays off. And when I come home from work or whatever I'm doing here on the off-grid cabin, want to shower, I've got some nice hot water for a shower. So how do I get hot water into the kitchen? Well, that is run by LP gas or propane. And I just use these little bottles here, just the little barbecue bottles, or the, excuse me, the little 8.5 kilo bottles. And that's what runs into the cabin, runs the hot water service for the kitchen, and runs the electric stove when, not the electric stove, sorry, runs the gas stove. And amazing if that ran an electric stove, I'd like to see that. But no, this runs the gas stove and the gas oven in the cabin, but I don't really use that anywhere as much now that I've got induction cooking. And this is the on-demand instantaneous hot water service that runs the hot water into the kitchen, so I can have some hot water on tap to do dishes and so on. So this is kind of, when you look at it off-grid, it's kind of off-grid. Off-grid people use propane or use LP gas. But yeah, I know you've got to go and bring that in from an outside source. So for all you politically correct technical people, that's not 100% off-grid, but it's off-grid enough for what we do in our modern day society. Righto, so it's been about an hour. So we're about there. Oh, that's kind of, if you look at that line right there, we're not quite 50%. We're pretty close to it. And I think that'll do for now. Let's have a look inside. See if I can get a better shot away from that sun. Yeah, that's filled it up a lot better than what it is. So what we need to do now is we're going to go and shut everything off. So I've got my bypass line. So we're shutting that off so that stops the bypass. We'll bring the pump back on. That's going to chart. No, I can't do that because that's going to pump the water up to there. I've got to turn that tank off first. Let's go and do that. I nearly forgot. I've got to turn these off before I go changing that tap on that pump, or it's going to pump the water back up here again. So let's turn that off. Let's turn that off. Now I can open up that pump tap. But while I'm up here, I know some of you are going to want to see inside this tank here. So let us take this off. There we go. We can kind of see that up there. Kind of see the water in that tank there. So that tank's full to the brim with water. Yeah, that's full. Well, it's not full because I've taken a little bit out of it. So you can see I've got a fair bit of water that I can use. Always had trouble getting this lid on. Takes two hands. I'll do that in a minute. So there you have it. A long video, probably one of the longest videos I've done. This will be fun editing it, but there's a lot to sort out. There's a lot to show you when it comes to showing the water and the power and the pumps and how everything works on the off-grid cabin. So you can see there's a fair bit involved with it. And what I haven't shown you, which is kind of a little bit different, is how everything works in the little caravan there. So if you wanted to see that, let me know in the comments below. But that's long enough. I think the video has gone for long enough. So if you followed it right through to the end, thank you very much. Don't forget to hit that little like button down below. Get the algorithms to log in that at least people are interested in my channel, which gives me the views, which keeps everything going, and then allows me to continue making videos. My fish need fish food too. So that's enough for me. So if you like the video, give it a I'm trying to, my hand's stuck in the fish thing now. See, there's kind of a blooper there. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video. And then there we go. We've hit 1,000 subscribers. So that's great. So we just got to get 1,000 of those people to actually watch my videos. That would be even awesomer. So give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. Usual thing, wait for the next awesome video that'll be coming out on the Off Grid channel.